everyone, this is Natasha from the Nextler team over here. It is so good to be live in our very first AI project. Welcome to Prompt Engineering for Beginners. Today we're going to learn the fundamentals of prompt engineering and make the most out of AI models like ChatGPT. Now, what you're going to need for this project is an AI tool like ChatGPT. You don't need to use ChatGPT for this project. You can use something like Claude, you can use Gemini. The techniques will still be the same. So this is going to be a lot of fun. This project is all about prompt engineering. We're going to stay focused on prompt engineering here. So if you have no experience with prompt engineering, just know that we don't assume any experience at all. This is completely free to do. It is easy peasy lemon squeezy, and it should take about 45 minutes if you do every single technique in this project. Think of this project as a bit of a cheat sheet, as a bit of a guide that you can always come back to. So you can always choose to just practice one or two techniques. If you practice all of the techniques plus the secret mission, that's how you'll end up spending 45 minutes. But I can totally see you spending maybe just 5 to 10 minutes or 15 minutes, depending on how many techniques you want to tackle today. So shall we get started with a little summary on what is prompt engineering and why it's so important? So in this project about prompt engineering, whether you're a seasoned developer, a curious marketer, or someone just wanting to ask a good question, just know that writing good prompts will really help you get better results with AI models like ChatGPT. Prompt engineering is also an important skill. You know, roles like AI engineer, data scientist, machine learning engineer, these are roles that genuinely use prompts to create AI tools. And that's why communicating with AI models is essential. Honestly though, writing good prompts is useful for anyone that's working with AI. So even if you're not looking to be a technical AI engineer, just know that these techniques that you're about to learn today can apply in your everyday conversations with ChatGPT and other AI models too. All right, so I just wanted to give a big shout out to everyone that's in the chat already saying hi, especially wanting to say hi to Tariq. Welcome. It's good to see you here. We have Bamisha here as well saying hello. Marzena saying hello all. Hi, Marzena. And Nikhil, hey everyone. Well, it's fun to see everyone from all across the world tuning in at the same time. And let's learn prompt engineering together. We're going to start with some foundational techniques like specifying roles and output formats. These foundational techniques you can get a handle of within maybe 5 to 10 minutes at max. And then later on, we're going to do a few more intermediate level techniques where maybe this is when you have a bigger project and you really want to get the responses to be very refined. And that's when you start to use self-critiquing and prompt chaining. Last, we have a few things around getting specific results. So these are some techniques that we'll get to try that are super helpful if you have a very ideal answer in your mind and it's just a matter of ChatGPT generating that ideal answer. These techniques are great when you're exploring, when you don't really know what you don't know and you kind of just want to explore some sort of concept. But if you already know exactly what you want, that's when reverse engineering and creative frameworks are going to be very helpful. We're going to put everything together with writing a meta prompt. I'm so excited for this step because meta prompts are so helpful. Meta prompts is it's a prompt that is going to turn ChatGPT or any AI model you use into a prompt assistant that will write prompts for you in the future. And that is definitely like a handy bookmark kind of prompt that you can always come back to in the future because it will just automatically churn out some really good prompts for you to use. For our secret mission today, we are going to do something that's like, honestly, no longer beginner level. You're going to start to learn how to write a prompt template. So AI apps absolutely need prompt engineers or any engineer that can take on that role to write prompt templates. And we're going to write our first one together. Cool. And this is where you get to choose your mode. Do you want to do something that is extremely hands-on and just gives you all the step-by-step instructions? Go for high touch. If you liked something that has less instructions, maybe less guidance, less examples, less copy and pasting, go for low touch. And no touch is where we really just give you the strategy and it's up to you to figure out how to implement it. So as always, our project demos will be using the high touch guide. So let's click on high touch together. And please note that the link to this project guide is also in the description, so check it out. You should be able to get access right away, which is pretty exciting. All right, so before we start step one, let's answer what we're here to do today. In this project, we will demonstrate prompt engineering. We're doing this project to learn different techniques and applications of prompt engineering, from basic techniques, e.g. roles, to meta prompts, and even prompt templates for apps. Isn't that pretty exciting? All of this in just one project. I'm pretty excited. So let's select done and let's get started with the project. Okay, we're gonna start the project by sending your first prompt. This is like a warm-up now. This is like a warm-up. We're just gonna ask a simple question, no prompt engineering techniques, just see what your AI model can do as a baseline. So log into ChatGPT or your preferred AI model. Again, you can use any other model like Claude or Gemini, even Microsoft Copilot. And let's get started, shall we? So I'm going to log in to my ChatGPT over here. I already have it ready, and we're gonna start a new chat. Okay, so this is where you can just ask ChatGPT what you like help with. And in this case, we're gonna enter a very, very simple prompt. What should I do in a conference? This is a very, very generic prompt you can use. If you prefer, this is your chance to change this prompt right now to another topic, and just know you're gonna have to stick to that topic for the rest of this project so that you can really see the incremental improvements with every single technique you use. So stick to the same topic, but this is your chance to just pick the topic you want now. We're gonna do what should I do in a conference? Is anyone else going to do another kind of technique, another kind of prompt? Add it to the chat. You know, what technique are you going to use? I'm very, very curious. I'd love to know. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Cool beans. And then we're gonna take a screenshot of the prompt and ChatGPT's response. I just realized I don't think I've actually copied that yet. So let me enter that and take a screenshot of the prompt as well as the response. Awesome. So it seems like ChatGPT is doing a pretty good job of writing, a 6-step kind of, or 6 different suggestions in one place. Not bad, for a first prompt without any kind of engineering techniques. Let me just take that screenshot one more time. I think I lost it. All right, here we go. And let us talk about the prompt we're using as a basic prompt. So we started our project with a basic prompt, asking ChatGPT, what do I do in a tech conference? Okay, and then I'm just gonna submit that. And I'll just let everyone tuning in to take your time to enter your first prompt. In the meantime, a big shout out to Hawana the fourth over Twitch, asking what should I do in a prompt engineering session? Well, this project ideally will give you all of the tips for doing prompt engineering from start to finish. I'm just gonna add the link to this project again over the chat so that you can get access to it and get started too. And we also have Marzena and Naija saying hi over the chat. That's lovely. Cool. Let's keep on going. So let's take a note of ChatGPT's response now. Ask yourself, is it clear and concise? Does it address your needs? Does it match your level of expertise and understanding of the topic? What would you do to improve the scope, the format, the tone of ChatGPT's response? It's still the first response. There are many ways that it can improve. Just have a really good feel of what would have been the perfect response for you? What would you have wanted to see? And then give that feedback. So we'll enter here, some things that you might want to change about this. Ooh. So my initial impressions of the response are, does anyone have any suggestions on, do you have any suggestions around, how you'd want to give feedback to this response? What do you think? Well, I think to start with, I think this response that ChatGPT has given us didn't really quite know what my experience level with attending a conference is yet. It doesn't really ask what kind of conference is it. It doesn't really know what I already do in a conference. So ideally, it could give even more personalized feedback in that way. I think the tips are slightly generic. I think these are some good tips, some good ones to cover all the bases. But I kind of wish that instead of things like planning ahead and following up, what if I just wanted to know what to do during the conference? Not before or after, but during, when everyone is out in the field talking and networking. What should I be doing in that time? So you can definitely form an opinion around, oh, do you think this is a good response? And don't afraid to be picky, and don't be afraid. Prompt engineering is all about really understanding what you want and giving that to your AI model in detail. In our case, we can say our initial impressions of the response are that it's helpful as a generic overview of conferences, but it's missing personalized tips based on the reader's existing experience level. It also doesn't address specific types of conferences, like tech. Cool. And we'll enter that. Okay, that's kind of our initial impressions of the response. I'm going to give everyone a minute or two to enter your own thoughts about the initial response. What do you think about the prompt you've given? And Hawana over the chat just clarified, oh, by the way, this prompt that you gave us, what should I do in a prompt engineering session? That's actually your prompt. That's what you're giving to ChatGPT. Oh my goodness. How is that initial impression? You're going to have to tell us. Do you like it? Is it generic? Do they give good tips? We have Carlos saying, hello. Hi, Carlos. It's really good to see you here. We have Tariq saying, hey from France. Oh my gosh, it's near midnight. Are you a night owl? That's impressive. It's really good to see you here. Thanks for spending the time here. Awesome work. Yeah, add it to the chat. What did you think of your initial response? Did you like it? Was it a bit generic? Let us know. Okay, and that is kind of your first pass of just giving a prompt. Throughout the rest of this project, we're going to ask ChatGPT the same question as our basic prompt, but just level up the request every single time using different prompt engineering techniques. This is where we're going to do a little bit of a dive into what is prompt engineering and why it's so important. So prompt engineering is about writing prompts that guide the AI to give you the most useful and precise answers. It's not simply about writing clever sentences to ChatGPT. It's not just about like knowing how to hack your way to talking with ChatGPT. It is going to feel like that a little bit, but it's not just about that, okay? Because when you interact with a tool that's powered by AI, what's happening behind the scenes is often it relies on a really good prompt to work. You know what? Why don't I do this? Imagine if I am using the Nextwork app, and I encourage you to jump into the Nextwork app and open this right now and highlight this. Prompt engineering is about writing prompts that guide the AI to give you most useful and precise answers. And imagine I'm now clicking Note, and I'm now asking the Nextwork app, oh, can you simplify that for me? Do you see how the app somehow just simplified this definition? Well, what's actually happened in the background is actually in the Nextwork app, we convert this clicking of a button into a very, very specific prompt that we process for you and then spit out the definition. So in some ways, AI tools feels like magic. It really feels like, oh my God, I clicked a button and it just did that. How is that possible? To kind of like peek behind the curtain a little. A lot of the time, what happens when that magic is like happening is that a prompt, a very, very well-written prompt was like processing in the background and creating this result for you. So yeah, a big shout out to everyone that is commenting on like, learning something new from that. I think that is something that's a big unlock in understanding why prompt engineering is so important. We have Uliana here. We're saying just joined. This all looks so interesting. And Ria is enjoying this too. That's awesome. And thanks so much for being here. What the heck? That's so lovely. Thank you so much. And let's keep on going by talking about that a little bit more. Okay, so we just covered that AI tools often use prompts in the back to actually create those AI effects and AI results for you. And how AI tools do that is they take in what you type in. Some AI tools, it's like a chat function where you say, hey, AI tool, can you please edit my video by making it 30 seconds for me? You type that into the AI tool, and the AI tool creates the results for you. That's case one. Case two is like simply clicking that button. First things first is the AI tool tries to take in that input. So it tries to take in, okay, button click occurred, or okay, user request occurred. And then it passes your request through a specific prompt template written by a prompt engineer. This prompt will tell the tool how to respond based on what the user put in. Okay, based on the user input, you should do this, you should do that. And then the AI tool gives a response based on that prompt. Now, what is even more interesting is sometimes you will see prompt chaining happen, which is where the AI tool doesn't just pass your request through a prompt template like this immediately. It will actually pass your request through a prompt writer first, so that the prompt writer will take in your request and then generate a prompt for you, so that the prompt gets generated dynamically. But really, the most important part you need to know is, you do something as the user, the tool receives it, tool turns that into a prompt, tool creates output based on prompt. Isn't that so cool? I think it's pretty cool. And that's the reason why AI engineers really need to figure out how to write prompts effectively. Because although engineering might sound like a bit of code, prompt engineering is where you're genuinely using the English language or using natural language to try to create very, very specific results. Some real-world examples of tools that are using prompt engineering in the back. We got coding assistants like GitHub Copilot. We got chatbots like Zendesk. We got design tools. If you use Canva, you will know that they have a huge suite of AI tools. And Canva's AI assistant is using a prompt template or prompt engineering in the background to create these results. Cool. So prompt engineering is a technique or process where instructions are given to AI models in a way that guides the model to give specific, useful, and accurate results. AI tools use prompts behind the scenes by converting user input button clicks into prompts. Okay? All right, just edited a few typos there, but we're all ready and we're all done. And we can get straight into some basic prompt engineering techniques to get us started. So here are some basic prompt engineering techniques. We're gonna fly through about 4 or 5. And these tips are very, very easy to use, and they can already improve your AI model's response quite quickly. So let's put them to the test with trying these. Adding a role and audience, defining a desired output format, clarifying questions, and decomposition. We're gonna also just spend a bit of time to reflect on the changes those techniques make to your AI's response. All right, let's get ready, guys. In this step, we will use strategies like, and if you need a reference, I'm gonna scroll up for you. Adding a role and audience, desired output formats, clarifying questions, and decomposition to improve our AI's responses. And you can really call these out as basic strategies. So if you already know some of these strategies, maybe you would have come across them in some sort of AI prompt engineering cheat sheet. But what this project is going to do is it's going to make you apply these strategies one by one to really see the effects of each of them and let you decide, which ones are your favorite, which ones will become your go-to tools. Okay, so let's start with the first one, which is to add role and audience context. We're going to go back into our ChatGPT interface, console, and start a new chat right away. Okay, this is where we're going to just enter a prompt that uses our first technique. This prompt says, "You are a seasoned tech conference speaker. Write a guide for aliens on how to attend their first tech conference." Okay, this is a big difference from the base prompt already, which is just about how do I, navigate, or what do I do in a conference. Here we're defining the role, a seasoned tech conference speaker, and then here's the audience, aliens, who are about to attend that first tech conference. And once you enter that in, just know that a role is like, that character that your AI is going to play. Are they going to be a professor, a specialist, a mentor, a friend? Who do you want to talk to you? What kind of tone and language and mannerisms do you want them to have? And then the audience is who the AI is talking to. Do you want the AI to talk to a beginner, an expert, someone that's nervous, someone that's excited, someone that doesn't know the risks of what's going on? The moment the AI really understands the context of who's talking and who is talking as the AI and who it's talking to, it's really going to start to tailor its word choices to match the knowledge level and the interests, or the attitudes of the audience that you pick. Now, we're going to enter that and just have a look at a bit of insight into why this technique and all the other techniques are so helpful by understanding tokens. So I don't know if you know about tokens yet, but tokens are basically every single word or even part of a word in a prompt. It can be a comma, it can be a full word like audience, it can be something that's like a phrase, AI model. A token can be a part of a word. So if you have a word that is made up of 2 words, both parts of that word could be taken as a token. And in this case, what you're going to notice is AI models write a response by predicting the most correct and relevant words related to your prompt. That's how AI models like write a reply. When you see this AI model just writing this reply straight away, to your prompt, what's happening here is actually the AI model is pulling apart your prompt word for word. It's going to go you are a seasoned tech conference speaker. Like, do you see how the same prompt can be broken down into so many different parts, into different tokens? And then, based on what your AI model has been trained on, it's going to know a bit of information about every single token. It's going to say, oh, seasoned. Let me search what happens in conversations or in articles or in websites and blogs that reference the word seasoned. What do people say when someone is seasoned? Oh, okay. Like, people seem to be talking in a certain way when they're seasoned. People seem to describe certain things as seasoned. And then it really analyzes every single word, every single token in that way until it can start to make a prediction, word for word, on what is the best answer to respond that responds to this string of tokens. It's just so fascinating to know that this model works, because in some ways it's actually very manual. It's very, very manual that every single token is pulled apart and then analyzed separately, and then words are strung together word for word to create a response. And that's why the moment you define a role and audience, the moment you say tech conference speaker, and the moment you say aliens attending the first tech conference, you are telling the AI model to focus its processing power on the specific tokens that you've just defined here. So now the AI model is not going to just go into all of the words that it knows about conference. It's just going to focus on the tokens or like the articles and the websites that it knows that's related to tech conference speaker. And it can be a lot more helpful because the outputs can now be generated based on a more specific subset of training data that your AI model has been trained on. That was a huge ramble on why prompt techniques work, but this concept applies to every single technique that you apply. It's truly about being very efficient with the tokens and the word choices that are in your prompt, so that your AI model's processing power is used in a very, very effective way. What did you think of that explanation? Was that clear? Was it confusing? Do you kind of get a sense of what tokens are now? Let us know in the chat, but we're not going to talk about tokens much more actually. This is just like a bit of a primer on all of the concepts behind prompt engineering. After this, now the entire project is really more about just getting hands-on with more and more prompt techniques. So we can go on with the next one. But first we're going to talk about we're just going to have a quick look at how much better this is now. Instead of like 6 bullet points, you now have 10 different headings with some pretty good details under each, and then talking in a very, very beginner friendly language, and like addressing that it's an alien. So already you're becoming a lot more specific just with the first prompt technique. But we're going to do better. We're going to start a new conversation. Actually, we can just start one like this. And we're going to use the second prompt technique now. Okay, I hope you're ready. Start your second prompt technique by writing the same thing. You are a tech conference speaker. Okay, you can say you are a seasoned tech conference speaker if you'd like. And then you say, before writing a guide for aliens attending their first tech conference, ask me any clarifying questions to better understand their needs. So here is the keyword for that technique now, clarifying questions. Once you enter that, you're going to see that instead of generating any response, your AI model is actually going to ask you questions back. It's going to ask you a few things that helps it understand, how detailed should it be, what are the ways that it can write a very, very good response back. I'm just gonna click this away and I'm gonna put myself to the little corner here as we continue. Okay, so feel free to just respond with 1 to 2 word answers. You don't need to be too specific here. So you can say newcomers. 2, what are specific aspects of the tech conference? Networking maybe? 3, are there particular challenges or concerns that the aliens might face? You can honestly be generic about it. You can say, not that I know of. But you can also just, give it what you want. So, you can also say challenges with hiding an alien appearance? Question mark? 4, what's the tone of the guide? Should it be humorous, straightforward, or a mix of both? Let's go with humorous. Is there any specific tech conference we're considering, or is this guide meant to be applicable to any conference? Ooh, any tech conference would be great. 6, how detailed should the guide be? Are we looking for a comprehensive manual or just some key tips and pointers? Let's go for key tips and pointers. Keep it a bit more succinct. And off it goes. Okay, so we've just responded to some of the questions here. And while it generates the response, let me answer a quick question that is in the chat. So we have Uliana asking why the response has changed. What's happened here? Why is it not asking questions? Why is it not generating a response anymore? So the reason for this is that we are now asking something specific here. Before writing a guide, before generating a response, ask me any clarifying questions. Ask me any clarifying questions to better understand the aliens' needs. And this is actually just such a good prompt to use in any kind of prompt that you want to go in detail for. Ask me any clarifying questions. And now it's on the AI model to actually figure out, okay, what information do I need to write a really, really good and accurate and tailored response? And it's going to ask you those questions. So it's no longer really on you to give all the details and all the context, just off by heart. You can get prompted on how you want to be specific about it, how you want to be specific about the response you get. Great. It'll say, thanks for the clarification. Here's how I'm going to tailor the guide. I'll focus on this. I'll include tips on blending in with humans. It even gives you a recap on how it's going to be a bit more tailored to you now. Any additional details you'd like me to include before I dive in? Nope. This looks great. Thanks. Here we go. Off it goes and creates a more humorous, alien-friendly guide for navigating that first tech conference. Off it goes. It even goes into a step-by-step guide. It makes sure that you're addressing all of the specific things that you've mentioned earlier. So, we said, oh, how do you look human? How is the alien going to mask their alien appearance? And here we go with already addressing that. In my responses to the clarifying questions, I said I want to focus on networking. Here we go, networking advice. Blend in during meals. So many interesting responses are coming out here now. And do you see just how much detail is in here now? That was so quick. We're only 2 techniques in. We've got 9 in total today. 2 techniques in, and you already have so much, just much, much better results. Okay, I let it stop generating so that we can let ChatGPT take a little breath. But, this was our very, very first. Oh, this wasn't even the first one. Oh, I might have lost it. Did I lose it? I might have lost the. Oh, maybe it's this one. Oh, yeah. So compare that level of detail with what we got in the first round. Pretty big difference. So that is technique number 2 to learn about. Encourage clarifying questions. And yeah, you guessed it. It just means you get more tailored and insightful responses. It's just very, very useful in ambiguous scenarios because sometimes you don't even know what you don't know, or you don't even know how you want to be specific. And that's where ChatGPT can actually give you more questions. That's the reason why this technique, asking clarifying questions, is very popular in models that are built for customer support. Because customer support models definitely need to dig into the customer's issue. Oh, you're stuck? You got an error? Did you do this? Oh, can you tell me more about this? You know, before I give any advice, why don't I ask a few more things about, you know, whether or not it could have been caused by something, or whether or not you've turned a setting on. These AI customer support chatbot, you know, these models are trained to ask for specific needs and constraints. It really makes a big difference in providing the right solutions. Okay, and yeah, this is what we just did. We gave it 2 to 3 word responses to the questions, and it really just tailors the output more effectively. How is everyone in the chat going? Did everyone get to try this technique? Have you tried it already before? What do you think of the results? Thanks, everyone. Okay, so we'll get going with the next technique, decomposition. So let's add another technique in the same chat. Instead of starting a new chat, if you'd like, you can just edit the same one. You can just edit the same one like this over here. You see how we had our responses to the clarifying questions? We're going to edit this. We're going to go down. And then we're going to ask it to divide the task into 3 to 5 smaller questions. So before we ask the AI model to generate a response, we're like, stop. Don't tell me the guide yet. I want you to divide the task into 3 to 5 smaller questions first. Again, you can use this technique anytime. You don't have to use this technique after clarifying questions. You can always use this at the very, very start of one. You know, write a guide for navigating a tech conference, divide this into 3 to 5 smaller questions before you start. You can definitely do that too. And what is really, really good about using a technique like this is you can actually see an outline of what ChatGPT wants to give you before it starts to generate anything. Like, this is a way to peek into how ChatGPT is going to think before it gives you a response straight away. So asking it to divide the task into 3 to 5 smaller questions is a great way to first pause its thinking. If you're like, oh, instead of first impressions, can we change the first one into do your research? And you can also use this to break up how much processing power ChatGPT is using. So in this case, we can just say, yes, please start. Let's say we actually really like the outline. And off it goes with creating it. Now, depending on how complex your original technique is, usually what this does is, again, it dives into even more detail compared to if you were to just go straight into creating the output. So this is the original, the Alien Guide Tech Conference. Oh, I can see that I think the guide itself is missing now, which is okay. It happens when you change the path of a chat. But you can see the previous one, and it gives like some pretty good responses, but what was missing from it was maybe some even more specific examples, whereas this one actually might be even more specific by giving more specific examples or giving you things to actually say. I actually love this guide, by the way. It's so cute. Networking like a pro. Use buzzwords liberally. Say things like blockchain, AI, scaling solutions, or synergy in your conversations. They'll nod approvingly, even if even if they don't fully understand either. Um, Avoid phrases like "What is your planet's dominant industry?" Um, this is some pretty fun. This is a pretty fun guide, I have to say. Perfect. Yeah, I love this guide. This is pretty cool. So you can always use deconstruction again to see how your AI model is going to think before it actually produces any response. You can also use it to have a look at whether or not it will create a more specific output. Because now it can divide the task first before spending all of its processing energy with answering each question. Dividing it into 3 to 5 smaller questions first, by the way, is usually something that it needs to do anyway before it generates a response. So before we actually added this to the prompt, the AI model would have had to do that anyway before it writes the response. But in our case, by telling it to just do that first, it can focus, its full energy on creating those 5 questions really, really well. And the next step, it can focus on answering all of those 5 questions really, really well, instead of having to do both things in the same prompt or in the same task. That's why kind of breaking up what it needs to do, also very helpful. So yeah, that's why decomposition is very, very helpful if you're using the free version of an AI model. Free models have lower limits in general around how many tokens it can process in each response. Once it hits that token limit, the model is more likely to just crash or just stop in the middle of a response. You might have seen it happen before. You might have seen ChatGPT like genuinely making a good, effort, and it eventually just stops, or just says like, oh, like model crashed, or it says like token limits hit. By decomposing your prompt, your model can really be more efficient with the tokens it uses, so that it's less likely to crash. It's more likely to generate better responses with the limits that it has. I love this technique. It's just so good. It's actually so, so useful. And a big shout out to Melia for saying, I've never tried this technique, but now I'm going to. That's awesome. And we have Joe looking surprised. It's good to have you here. Do you use prompt engineering techniques, Joe? I hope you enjoy some of the learnings in this one. Cool. So here we've actually, told our model to just go ahead and start, write out the guide as it would by answering all of those 5 questions. But what if you actually wanted the guide to look a specific way? So this is where you can specify output format. And here are some tips on how you can specify output format. Tell ChatGPT exactly the format, which is like, do you want a list, an essay, a speech, a presentation, a Q&A, a blog? How long should it be? You can write it in number of words or number of minutes it takes to go through it. What is the tone and the language level, and any constraints that you want to add. So what if we were to specify the output format? Let's copy that and put that as a part of our instructions. Write the guide for aliens attending their first tech conference, and this is exactly how you want it to look. What do you think it's going to look like, the output? Send it off and let's see what happens. Great. Off it goes with writing a response already. And as a reminder, we've kind of said bullet point list with points bucketed into 3 main categories. Okay, it's about 200 words. We should be informative and neutral. Let's pepper in some lighthearted comments. You can choose something crazy like humorous and sarcastic. And change up the language level however you like. If you say, oh, complete beginner to English, or you can say, full of jargon, someone that's an expert in AI wants to know all of the AI jargon to get them ready for the conference. That's another way you can personalize this too. Cool. Well, I'm quite impressed. It really did just write bullet points on the three main categories: navigating talks, mastering human networking, blending in with humans. It seems to have done a good job in actually understanding our prompt and writing the output in a very specific way. Does it feel like 200 words? I think it meets that word count pretty well. So I would say this is pretty effective as well as a prompt engineering technique. Great. And these are some tips on how you can specify output format if you ever have a request that you want to give your AI model. In the meantime, though, let's take a screenshot of the refined prompt and the improved response. So let us take a screenshot like this. And add that to our documentation. And for everyone that is wanting to get access to the project guide, just know that this project guide is available to everyone. Please check it out and get started right away. You should be able to upload your screenshots, answer those questions as well. And I'm really excited to see everyone's documentation. Cool. Foundational strategies to refine our basic prompt include, we went through 4 just now. Was that okay, everyone? Are we going at a very, very fast pace? Do you wish it was slower? Or is this at a good pace? Let us know. It's very, very helpful feedback. Okay. Foundational strategies to refine our basic prompt include defining a role and audience, asking clarifying questions, decomposition, and what was the last one we just did? Do you remember what we just did? We asked to specify the output format, e.g. tone, length, what else? Language level. All of that is possible. Did these techniques improve ChatGPT's responses? Time for you to reflect. Once we use these techniques, we noticed that the AI's response changed by, it changed by becoming more specific and with more confidence about understanding our use case. You know, it got a lot more tailored. The answer was longer. It really felt like the AI model was just generating a response based on like really understanding what we needed and just giving that to us. You know, before in our baseline prompt, in our basic prompt, it was so generic. It was so general that it was almost like, you know, well, here are some 6 random things, but hopefully one's going to be helpful. Yeah, I'm very, very impressed with the effectiveness of these basic prompts already. So what did you think what made the biggest difference? Did you have a technique you liked the most out of the 4? So you can say, we thought the techniques that made the biggest difference were, I would say clarifying questions was a really good one. So I'll type in, we're asking clarifying questions. Perfectly met the character limit. That's awesome. Well done. Okay, and that's like most of the techniques in one step. You know, we have 9 in total. We went through 4. We've got about 5 techniques that kind of level things up from here. Shall we get started? So here are some intermediate prompting techniques now. And we have 2 to learn about. They're called prompt chaining and self-critiquing. I have used these techniques so many times ever since I learned these for the first time. So helpful whenever you're really wanting to write something. You really want to generate a report, an outline, just write something with ChatGPT. And I do think that level of depth and analysis that it has just improves a lot when you use them again and again and again in the same conversation. So sometimes techniques aren't one-off. You got to use it multiple times in the same convo. And these are examples of techniques that you can definitely use multiple times in the same conversation to get a good kind of effect every single time. Shall we get started? In this step, we will be experimenting with intermediate techniques that are very helpful for more insightful I would say outcomes. They are iterative techniques that you can definitely use again and again. Cool. So with that mentioned, let us select done and get started. First up is prompt chaining. Prompt chaining is awesome. Prompt chaining is about using the output of one prompt as input for the next prompt. I really like this one because prompt chaining is truly about building your own AI model's kind of knowledge and understanding of something before you go into, okay, generate it for me now. We did that already in the basic one. We kind of said, okay, decomposition. We asked it to give us clarifying questions. You know, by using those techniques in the same conversation, that is actually already prompt chaining at work. But in this case, we're gonna see how would you do it if prompt chaining was the only technique you were doing in the chat. So let us select a new chat and let us see what prompt engineering would look like or prompt chaining would look like from scratch. I use prompt chaining so much, so to be doing it with you in this project is a lot of fun. Let us copy the initial prompt like this. List the common scenarios aliens could face at tech conferences. Do you see how this prompt is not about writing me a guide or solving any problem? It's about just what are the common scenarios an alien could face. It's a different kind of initial prompt, isn't it? Because you're not asking for solutions, you're just asking it to list something. So what's going to happen is your AI model is going to spend all of its processing energy and the amount of analysis it can do in a token on just listing some common scenarios. Okay? And off it goes. It writes a really, really good list of scenarios. And could your AI model have really got into this much depth if it wasn't prompted to do it from the start? Questionable, right? Because your prompt could have easily just asked your AI model to just go straight into giving advice. And with that, your AI model wouldn't have spent nearly as much time just on figuring out what are the potential problems your audience could be facing. So here it goes. Your AI model now gives you 19 different potential scenarios that could have happened in a tech conference. That's already more than the 5 tips that we generated from the previous prompts. Great. So now we're going to ask ChatGPT to follow up with more insights. So this is where the chaining happens, because the output for this becomes the input for the next prompt. We're not going to say, now provide actionable advice to each of these scenarios. So if I had just given this prompt to a new chat, start from fresh, it's not going to do anything. It's going to be like, what scenarios? What are you looking for here? But in our case, because we'd already let it create the inputs for the next thing, it can go straight into generating some pretty interesting and useful responses. Look at all this actionable advice coming out now. And think about just how useful that guide will become with, instead of 5 tips, now there's 19 tips coming out, actionable advice for every single common scenario it can think of. I'm gonna give ChatGPT a little breather, a little break, because I think we've kind of shown you now just how effective that technique is. Think about this before we move on. Just pause and think about how you could apply this to your own prompts. Think about a prompt that you would have given to ChatGPT recently, and how could you have applied prompt chaining to it? How could you have broken it down into 2 different parts? You can pause this video if you're watching after the live. I would just recommend applying that to something that you've already done before, so that you really get a feel for how useful this prompt is, or this prompt technique is. If you don't mind sharing in the chat that something that you've tried before that you can now use with prompt chaining, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear your technique suggestion too. All right, but in our case, what is the prompt chaining technique? Let's go into detail. More advanced techniques include prompt chaining, which is where we divide an initial request into 2 parts, and the output for the first part becomes the input for the second prompt. Okay? For example, we first asked for common scenarios in tech conferences. For example, we asked for common scenarios before requesting actions. Oof. So I've run out of characters, as usual. But let's have a look at how I could condense this answer a little bit. More advanced techniques include prompt chaining, where we divide an initial request into 2 parts. And the output for the first part becomes the input for the second part. For example, we ask for common scenarios before requesting actionable advice. Okay, this is the reformed version. More advanced techniques include prompt chaining, where we divide an initial request into 2 parts. The output for the first part is the input for the second prompt. For example, we ask for common scenarios before asking for actionable advice. That was pretty helpful, wasn't it? So next one, self-critiquing. This is again a winner, an absolute winner when you're writing prompts. If you think ChatGPT just gives you the best answer straight away, you're going to be surprised. AI models are great at identifying flaws in their own responses. So they're actually very, very good at giving feedback around what's good and what's not so good and how it can improve. So let's give it a go and respond to ChatGPT with instructions to critique itself. This is also a really good chance, not change, but this is a very good chance, that was a little typo here, to use some of the other techniques you've learned in the previous step. You can ask ChatGPT to give specific advice as a specific role, and we learned about roles in the previous step. So what if we ask ChatGPT to become an expert in alien behaviors and tech conferences? Best of both worlds. Critique this guide for gaps, unclear steps, or inconsistencies. Evaluate whether the tone is appropriate for speaking with aliens. Do you think it's going to work? This was literally generated by ChatGPT itself. Do you think it can actually provide good feedback? Let's see. All right, so we start with the strengths. As usual, ChatGPT is going to tell you what it does well. It adopts a friendly, humorous tone. There's practical advice. There's also efforts to bridge cultural gaps. Okay, great work. But there are also some suggestions. There is a lack of alien-specific examples. Okay. It is very, very insightful in the ways that it can improve. Overlooked nuances of alien physiology. Scenarios focus too heavily on humor. Inconsistent depth of advice? Like, what? Look at all of this very, very specific advice, and even clarity improvements, evaluation of tone, before it goes into an overall verdict. That is a lot of good advice in here. And of course, you might have guessed it, you can ask ChatGPT to implement those changes. So copy the code, and you can, copy the prompt, and you can paste it here. Now, you don't have to ask it to implement every single change. Sometimes it's actually better to say, hey, can you implement the changes for lack of alien-specific examples? And now it's going to focus all of its energy on improving this part, which is going to be more effective than asking it to improve like every single thing that it suggested. But as a sweeping kind of prompt that you can use, you can ask it to implement its suggestions, and off it goes with giving you a very refined version of the same thing. Okay. So this is pretty fun, isn't it? Look at just how effective prompt engineering is. The impact that it already has in our prompts, I'm pretty impressed with it. I'm pretty impressed. What about you? What do you think about these responses? Are you seeing better results in your own chats? Great work, everyone. So we're going to take a screenshot of the self-critique prompt and then ChatGPT's response as well. Let's go back up. I'm just, again, going to give ChatGPT a bit of a break from generating all of this by going back up into where we ask for its own review. Great work, team. Let's drag that in and head on to the next part. Another technique is self-critiquing, which means, what does this mean? Self-critiquing means asking the AI model to evaluate the quality of its own response. ChatGPT responded to this with an outline of strengths, improvement areas, and even the ability to implement on its own feedback. That was pretty helpful. Okay, so we've just learned 4 different techniques in step 2 and another 2 techniques in step 3. So we're about to get into the last 2 techniques in step 4 before one overarching one in step 5. But step 4 is really where we stop learning a lot of new techniques. So I would highly recommend giving these 2 a good go as well before you wrap things up with that final technique called meta prompt. So here we are with some specialized prompting techniques now. Imagine if you had a very specific end goal in mind. You know exactly what you want, and you want to give your AI model just this very precise set of instructions to get it done. We're about to dive into 2 specialized techniques now that are extra helpful when you're working with some clear objectives, when you just know exactly what it should look like. It's no longer really about exploring an unknown. You just want your prompts to deliver some precise, actionable results. Yeah, the last 6 that we looked at, they are very, very good when you don't really know what you want to know and when you don't really know what you don't know. But this is very, very helpful when you do know exactly what you want and you're like, just deliver it to me. So let's give that a go now. In this step, we will be applying specialized techniques for when we have a specific output, or I would say specific output or instructions for our AI model. These techniques are, I would say these techniques are reverse engineering and creative frameworks. Okay, thank you, team. Let's get started. So reverse engineering is that first specialized technique we're gonna do, and it starts with the goal output in mind. So you might be familiar with the term reverse engineering. If you're new to this term, just know that reverse engineering, let's use Simplify to talk about it. It's the process of taking something apart to understand how it works. Instead of looking forward, you're looking backwards. So looking forward would be like, I have this problem. How do I solve it? Looking backwards would be like, oh, I have this solution. How could I recreate it? So in our case, we're going to give ChatGPT an example of something that nails it. Let's say we find a LinkedIn post, we find a random poster, something that already looks really good to us. It makes us think, oh, I want to do something exactly like that, but maybe in a different kind of tone, or maybe just something slightly different about it. I don't want to copy and paste it. I want to do something that's very similar, but just not exactly the same, not identical. So what you're going to do when you run into a situation like this is you're going to start a new conversation with ChatGPT, and then you're going to give it what you see that you want to replicate. So we're going to start that new conversation now, and we're going to paste this in. Let's say we saw this really, really cute, quick and easy alien guide to tech conferences. And we say, oh, I really like the way this was written. I want to do something kind of similar. So before you enter the prompt, stop. For most people, this is where the AI model is going to be asked, read it and generate a similar output. Do you do that? Have you done that before? Have you ever just put something into a chat with ChatGPT and just say, read this example, and then write a similar guide with the same tone, same language, but use this topic instead? This is a very, very common way people use examples, but reverse engineering does something slightly different. So the reverse engineering technique is where you actually ask the AI model, knowing this output, how would you write a prompt that could have generated this? Do you see the difference? You're not asking it to generate something similar straight away. You're actually asking it to generate a prompt for you that could have created this output. Why is this useful? It's useful because now you get your own prompt template that you can adjust a little bit to really suit your needs, and then replicate it in many, many different ways without having to keep that copy every single time. And I think it gives you an insight into how you can better write prompts for other things that you want to generate on the fly without a specific example in the future. It's almost like training. You get to understand, oh, this is how ChatGPT would write prompts itself. Give yourself the time to find something you want to replicate. This is here's an example that you can copy right away. But if you have an article, if you have a post that inspires you, this is your chance to take it now. So before you enter the prompt, you're going to actually give it this actual task that you want ChatGPT to do. You're telling ChatGPT you are a prompt engineer, so you're giving it the role. What prompt would you give to an AI model to generate this output? Let's see. Here's a precise prompt to generate such output. You are a witty content creator, crafting fun, quirky, and engaging social media posts with a tech-savvy audience in mind. How interesting is that? You're getting ChatGPT to generate that prompt for you, knowing the end goal in mind. And look at how specific it went. Gave you the constraints, gave you the example output structure. Now, if it sometimes won't become this specific from the get-go. Maybe you're copying this and you're watching this video and you're thinking, oh my gosh, my output doesn't look this good. This will happen if you haven't really used ChatGPT for some time, or if it's because maybe you're in a different kind of plan. I know that I'm demonstrating this on a pro plan for ChatGPT, so maybe if you're on a free plan, you might be using a different model to analyze it. But whatever it is, you're going to be able to see a prompt to show up. And that's the key part. That's the most important part. So copy this, and this is your chance to paste it in a new chat and test how good that prompt was. Was it good? Do you think we're going to replicate the same ideal post? Not bad, isn't it? So here we go with generating our own thing using the prompt that ChatGPT gave us. Isn't this pretty interesting? What do you think of this technique? Would you use it? Let us know in the chat or in the comments. I hope this one's useful. Yeah, so this is, we got to get a response. It looks pretty good. And what if we went back to that first prompt we gave it? Okay, this is the first prompt we gave it, which is where it generated the prompt for us. So this is where we first used reverse engineering. Let's go back to that chat. And let's try using another technique we learned earlier. Let's try to make it self-critique its own prompt. So we're going to get it to self-critique its own prompt and see whether or not it can improve that prompt again. As a prompt engineering expert, critique the quality of the prompt compared to the model output I gave you. Do you think the prompt could become even better? Let's see. So again, we start with the strengths. And then there's still areas for improvement. ChatGPT can still spot ways it could have improved its own prompt. Isn't this so cool? Overall rating, 8 out of 10 effectiveness, 7.5 out of 10 for accuracy to style. Refined prompt, post critique. It already goes and creates that new prompt for us. And it becomes even more specific. What? It even gives an example step. No, that's really smart. It even adds a little example step to the prompt, which is awesome. But it's really good to see, when you ask it to critique its own thing, what I really, really like about it is it doesn't just spit out. We don't just say, write better. How would you improve this? when you ask it to take on a role and critique it, you actually get an insight into how does it think and why does it like write the outputs that it writes. I just find that very, very insightful. It becomes a lot more customizable, what you do with ChatGPT. So shall we, test that the better prompt? Should we see how well it can write now? I personally don't think it is that much different from the first one. I think it's actually more detailed than the first one. So it's actually a bit less like the ideal output. It's actually wordier now. Oh, and a network error occurred as well. So I don't know if asking it to critique itself actually resulted in better results, which sometimes happens. But the good thing is it gives you a different kind of result as well. Now you have more things to work with, more options to choose from. So that's pretty nice. But I'm just going to stop it now to give it some time to breathe. And we're going to add some of what we've learned into our documentation. So we're going to take a screenshot of that reverse engineering technique. And let us add that to our documentation. And we'll add our explanation as well. Reverse engineering is helpful when you are wanting to generate a specific prompt that will help you create your model response. We use this technique to reverse engineer an existing post and replicate it with ChatGPT's suggested prompt. And the post is on the same topic, which is so cool. All right, great work. So we're gonna add some creative framework prompts. So this is gonna be the last technique that we learn. And in the meantime, we have Shashank in the chat asking, when does the next security project drop? The last one was fire. I'm really glad to hear you enjoyed the guard duty project. Agreed, that one was definitely one of the most advanced security projects we've released to date. And we'll have to see. We're doing an AI season. But if you have any security projects you have in mind, do you have a specific service or a specific topic you want to go into? Let us know so we can put that in the project wish list as well. Okay. Shall we move on to our last technique, which is to use the creative framework. Now, creative frameworks are a great option if you just want ChatGPT's response to be structured a specific way. Some popular frameworks are over here. So many are out there. This is not the only list. There's going to be, I think, more than 100 formats or structures that are out there. So these are the most popular ones. And you just pick any one of these and use it in your prompt. So frameworks are basically ways to answer or respond to something. If you've prepared for an interview before, you might be familiar with the STAR framework: situation, task, action, result, or I think sometimes people say outcome. And you can use STAR to tell a story, And here are some other frameworks you can use for other use cases. But for us, all you gotta do, start a new chat with ChatGPT, chuck in one of these frameworks, and check out just the results. This again is a good technique to use when you know exactly what you want. So this is a great technique to use because you know exactly which framework and how you want ChatGPT to respond to you. But you don't have to use it if you think, none of these frameworks are great. Then you can stick with some of the other techniques you've learned today. I personally think it's so much fun to just experiment and have a look at all of these different techniques. Just try different ones. It's like trying different ice cream flavors. Before you buy your ice cream, sometimes you can be like, oh, can I try like a bite of this one? And then, once you realize you really like one, you can double down and make that your go-to technique. But this is cool. The problem solution benefit framework already writes the same thing, writing a guide for aliens with tech conferences. It already gives you a very specific way to answer it. How easy is that? Of course, if you're thinking big brain, you can always say, I want to write a prompt for, or you can say, I want to write a guide for tech conferences. What is a framework or creative framework I can use? And then now ChatGPT will actually suggest to you great frameworks to use to talk about, a guide to tech conferences. And you can use that instead of having to decide on the framework yourself. For now, let us add a screenshot of the results to the chat. Oh, we don't actually need to. That's easy then. Creative frameworks. What are they? Let's recap it now. Creative frameworks are specific layouts for explaining things. I would say specific layouts for explaining different kinds of things. For example, the STAR framework is great for storytelling. While, and you can pick one of these up here and choose that. The problem solution benefit framework is one that you can tackle. While problem solution benefit is great for problem solving. You can use this to analyze in a specific way. All done. Had a lot of fun with creative frameworks. So that was a good wild ride on some intermediate level prompts. How did you find those? Do you have a favorite? As a recap, we've gone through defining a role and audience. We also went through asking clarifying questions. We also asked about defining a specific output format, decomposition, which is like break down this task into 3 to 5 questions. There was also prompt chaining. First, what are some common scenarios? And then, can you provide some actionable advice for each scenario? What else was there? We also talked about, after prompt chaining, we also talked about self-critiquing. That was pretty fun. So, as another AI expert, critique your own guide and see how it can improve. And then just now we went through 2 more. That is great when you have a specific goal in mind, like reverse engineering and using creative frameworks. So that was a good roundup of all of the techniques we used just now. Shashank has asked a great question here. This is about the cybersecurity projects. AI and cybersecurity would be an amazing addition, and I completely agree. We'll add that to the wish list now. Thank you. Awesome. So let us wrap things up here with building a meta prompt. This is going to really take prompt engineering to a final level because you're going to generate a meta prompt, which is a prompt that gets ChatGPT to generate other prompts for you. How could it do that? Let's dive into it now. In this step, we will explore meta prompts. These are prompts that get ChatGPT to generate other prompts for us. These prompts would use the best practices and techniques that we've just gone over. Isn't that cool? So let us create that meta prompt as our grand finale and start a new chat with ChatGPT first of all. Okay, once you've gotten started, we're going to tell ChatGPT to become your personal prompt generator. So we're going to give it some guidelines around those best practice tips and techniques we talked about. And then off it goes to become this assistant that transforms our request into some really, really good prompts. Okay, so this is the summary of all of the techniques we learned today. And pause this video, take the time to challenge yourself to write your own meta prompt. And if you want, you can also choose a meta prompt that we've prepared using the best practice techniques we've mentioned previously. So here is a meta prompt that asks to clarify and refine, define your role and audience, structure and format, decomposition, prompt chaining, self-critiquing, reverse engineering, and then engaging with examples, which is a little handy little extra for all the pros out there. And let's add that over here. Now we're going to get our chat to become a very, very, very proficient prompt engineer for us. Got it. I'll stick to these guidelines and ensure every prompt is crafted with precision, clarity, and tailored to your audience and intent. Well, we'll see if it actually does that. So let's take a screenshot of the meta prompt and then put it to the test. Alrighty, let's get into it. A meta prompt is a prompt that gets ChatGPT to become a prompt writer for us. I structured my meta prompt by layering multiple techniques and writing headers for each technique, e.g., role and audience context, decomposition, reverse engineering, etc. So, shall we put our meta prompt to the test? Are you ready? Make sure, if you are still taking time to write your meta prompt, that you give yourself that time. I think writing a meta prompt is great for practice on creating prompts and revising all of the techniques that you like and want to use. So give yourself that time to write it. Feel free to just continue playing when you're ready to keep going. When you're ready to test your meta prompt and you've finished writing it, let us give it a single topic to write about, which is to navigate a tech conference. So let us add this in here. Here we go. Here's a structured approach to crafting a clear and audience-aligned prompt for navigating a tech conference. But before it actually writes the prompt for us, look at it go with actually asking us some clarifying questions first. Pretty nice. It even gives us a sample prompt already, some framework options, an example output. It does a pretty good job at trying to create a prompt that's useful for us. I personally feel like this is really good, creating the sample prompt and breaking it down piece by piece. But I still feel like it didn't need to do that straight away, because we still need to add in our own responses to its clarifying questions. In some ways, we could have just stopped here and spent more time on writing good quality clarification questions. Imagine instead of writing all of this, it spent all of its energy into writing 10 clarifying questions instead. I actually feel like that could have been better, because those 10 clarifying questions would actually result in a better prompt that comes out of it, once it gets 10 pieces of context instead of just 3. So, that's a learning you can take away from writing a meta prompt, something that you might want to address in your meta prompt. And in the meantime, you can just try and test the effectiveness of these prompts by responding to it and seeing whether it genuinely does a good job with writing that prompt for you. Answer, let's say, aliens trying to blend into, I would say trying to observe human behavior. Is the purpose of attending the conference, and who was it? The target audience. Answer. Oh, I just realized who is the target audience should be down here. Okay, so we just answered the first question. What is the purpose of attending? To observe human behavior is the answer. Who is the target audience? Let's say the target audience is aliens attending their first conference ever. What specific challenges or situations should the prompt address? Answer. Focus on challenges during the conference, not before or after. So let's try and answer these clarifying questions and see whether or not the prompt that comes out is a useful one. Okay, great. So we have a prompt that's come out here. It seems to be very, very specific on the topics that it should focus on. Gave it a bit of advice on the tone, keeping it light, educational, and humorous. And it even offers to explore variations of this. So it can actually explore a different version of the prompt for us. Do we like the prompt? I think, interestingly enough, follow-up prompts are no longer there. Example outputs no longer there. Framework options no longer mentioned. And did it define a role and audience? Yes, it did. So at least it kept a few of the techniques. Do we think it used all of them? Maybe not. Up to you on whether or not that's a problem. Sometimes it's actually a good thing that it was focused and it just went straight to creating the prompt for us. So form your own opinions, and we're about to just make a bit of a reflection on creating a meta prompt. We tested our meta prompt by asking it to generate a prompt related to attending a tech conference. The generated prompt automatically incorporated techniques like I would say role and audience context. What else? The generated prompt also incorporated, I would say, specific output format. Tone and language was mentioned, which is pretty good. But yeah, like we mentioned, it didn't follow everything in the meta prompt. So what that means is that the prompt that ChatGPT wrote for us didn't follow every single best practice technique that's out there. So what should we do? We should have a think about why that happened. Usually, what happens is AI models like ChatGPT are really trying to balance your instructions with the amount of limits that they have with processing them. Imagine if you said, okay, you can answer as many queries as you can within 3 seconds. And you're like, look, even if I knew the answers to all of these queries, even if I could answer them, there's no way I could answer 100 in 3 seconds. Like as myself, I would easily say, I don't think I can do that. And ChatGPT kind of has similar limits. You are passing it a very, very big prompt, telling it like to follow these instructions. And ChatGPT has a very, very limited number of tokens that it can process and output. So it's just the same as how much time we have. You can think of tokens as a similar kind of limiting factor for ChatGPT. So in our case, it would struggle to address everything effectively, and then it will start to just focus on the most relevant parts of your prompt. It might just skip parts. It will just ignore or simplify different things, and the results will seem imperfect to us. But really, it's also because the prompt we gave it is a bit too much. So to get the best results, usually you would just include 1 to 2 techniques in your initial prompt. Keep it focused, keep it light. And then once the AI responds, that's when you would give feedback and add another 1 or 2 techniques. This is a step-by-step approach that will get the AI to address each part even more effectively. We noticed the generated prompt missed instructions we defined. What did we miss? Missed, like suggesting, I would say the hard part is the fact that it actually covered quite a bit in the first prompt, like this first version, but it just struggled to bring them up again later on. So it's up to you on whether or not you count that as a win or not. It seems like it missed out on self-critiquing. And I would say self-critiquing mostly, actually. That's pretty good. I would say suggest self-critiquing. And it eventually lost context of frameworks and follow-up prompts, which is basically prompt chaining. It eventually lost context of that, it didn't suggest that anymore. So this is because the AI model was overwhelmed with the instructions. It would have been overwhelmed by the meta prompt's instructions, and it would have just almost lost context to prioritize certain things. Oh, drop my pen, 1 second. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. That was a wrap on this project on prompt engineering. I know we went through so much. What did you think? Did you think there were too many prompts in one project? Do you wish it was shorter, longer? Do you want some more? If you want some more, hang in there, hang in tight for another 10 minutes because we're about to do a secret mission together. If that was a wrap for you, absolutely you can finish up from here and be extremely proud of all of the progress you've made with prompt engineering in this one project. So for anyone that is a challenge taker, someone that really wants to keep on going with prompt engineering and unlock that final level, this mission, should you choose to accept it, is another level up. It's a bit more difficult, and it asks you to become a prompt engineer on a project developing an AI chatbot for customer support. So in this secret mission, you're going to learn to roleplay with ChatGPT, who's going to act as a customer support manager for you. You're going to have to gather requirements from ChatGPT to write a template for the chatbot, and then keep on getting feedback and improving your template. So the trick here is really understanding the difference between techniques you've just learned and writing a template. It's slightly different, isn't it? Because you might have learned previously that these templates are used in apps. What happens is, let's say, user clicks on an AI button, AI tool detects the click, translate that to a prompt, and that's where a prompt template comes in handy. Prompt template processes it, processes the action using the AI model that's in the background, and then the outputs get sent to the user of your AI tool. So to actually create the prompt template is like another layer away from directly interacting with the AI model as the end user. You almost have to write as a middleman, and you might need to end up using slightly different language or a slightly different approach. So let us unlock the secret mission and truly level up and become a real pro with this secret mission. Okay, so in this secret mission, we will roleplay in this secret mission, we will roleplay as an AI engineer writing a prompt template for an AI application. ChatGPT will roleplay as someone that we need to gather requirements from and get feedback from. This is a big level up for prompt engineering. All right, did a bit of cheating there, but I just edited my answer so that I could stay within the character count. In this secret mission, we will roleplay as an AI engineer writing a prompt template for an AI application. ChatGPT is going to roleplay as someone that we need to gather requirements from and someone that's going to give us some feedback. This is a big level up for prompt engineering skills. Let's get started. Okay, shout out to Joe, who has mentioned something very, very sweet in my opinion. I feel this is a nice project for prompt engineering. Thank you. I do like greeting ChatGPT with a hello or how are you when doing my prompts. Don't know when AI will become my boss in the future. Oh my gosh. I have to say, saying hello, please, and thank you also makes me pretty happy when I'm interacting with ChatGPT as well. All right, so we're going to start a new chat with ChatGPT, and you're going to use this script to set up ChatGPT as your customer support manager. So let us put this into the chat to tell ChatGPT you are now Alex, the customer support manager. Do not respond as an AI model. You're going to talk like you're in a conversation with the user, that's us. And what's happening is you specialize in customer satisfaction, and you need to provide detailed feedback and requirements to the AI engineer on how to build a chatbot for automating repetitive support tasks. So we are going to be the AI engineer that needs to create a AI customer support chatbot. And we're going to ask ChatGPT to role play as a customer support manager that's going to give us feedback on whether or not our prompts are good. This is a very common use case for prompt engineering in teams where you're trying to automate something that used to be handled by a specific function in the company. Because now as an engineer, you need to really get to know these non-technical stakeholders, get to understand their requirements, and then turn them into technical prompts. Just thinking about the amount of converting of information into prompts really shows you that prompt engineering is a skill. It's not just chucking some random things into the chat. All right, so let us start by greeting Alex, our customer support manager. And we're going to say, "Hi, Alex. I'm here as your AI engineer to design a customer support chatbot. I'd like to start by gathering a few things to understand the chatbot. Can I ask you a few questions?" Off we go. Absolutely, feel free to ask me anything you need. I'm here to provide insights and help design a chatbot that works seamlessly for our support team and our customers. What's on your mind? This is now the ball's in your court. Where are you going to start generating a prompt template for an AI chatbot? So if you'd like, you can focus on one specific use case of customer service chatbots. Is it people struggling to log in, people struggling to handle a refund, people wanting to check out but then they don't see their cards getting declined? Why are they talking with a customer service chatbot? Pick one use case, or you can even ask the manager to pick one for you. You can say, "I'd like to kick off by focusing on one specific use case for the chatbot. What would you suggest?" So Alex says you should start with order tracking. It's one of the most common queries we get, and it's fairly straightforward to automate. Customers usually ask, "Where's my order?" or "When will it arrive?" So the chatbot can pull tracking info and provide real-time updates. Want me to explain how we currently handle these? That would be great. Okay, so currently when a customer asks about order tracking, they provide their order ID or email. Our support team looks up the order, checks the shipping status, and shares the tracking details or delivery estimate. Sometimes we also need to clarify delays or redirect them to the courier's website. Automating this with a chatbot could cut response time drastically. Does that sound like the level of detail you're looking for? Is it? Would you say so, team? We're gonna just answer this question and then dive into the details. We also started a project extension where we roleplay as an AI engineer writing a prompt template for an AI app. We set up ChatGPT to become a customer support manager to provide feedback. our prompt template will focus on order tracking. Fun. I really like this secret mission. It's just so much fun. So it's up to you now. You can gather requirements as much as you want on what you think will be useful to help you develop your chatbots template. If you're stuck, which is fair enough, this is a new skill set you're unlocking here, you can ask for a few ideas. Don't forget, to write a great prompt, you can use these techniques. So what kind of information should you get from Alex, the support manager, to get information to help you write all of this? For example, you can ask Alex for some feedback on how your chatbot should sound. What is the tone? Okay, cool. So we know that it should be a friendly and empathetic chatbot. They should be quite excited and keep things conversational. You can even ask for more specific tone guidelines. So as you can imagine, this can become a very, very developed project. Depending on how much time you want to spend on the secret mission, it can expand to be as long as you want it to be, or as specific and concise as you want it to be too. So based on the requirements you've gathered from Alex, the customer support manager, this is where you can write up a draft prompt template for the specific use case. I really encourage you to pause this video now and try to make this chatbot your own. I'm literally going to just start some silence, a few moments of silence, to really encourage you to pause this video and ask as many questions as you can. And ask questions that you can think about that's not included here. I have a feeling I'm probably missing something. What do you think I've missed? You can add it to the chat, add it to the comments. I'd love to know. Okay. So if you haven't paused yet, please pause now. But in our case, let's say that you use the requirements you've gathered from Alex, the customer support manager, to write up that draft prompt template. This is a template where you should say things like, you must speak in this tone, you should ask clarifying questions like this, follow this template, follow this example of, a great customer support conversation. So that's where you can, really create a very helpful template to build your AI chatbot. And here is a template that we're going to give you that you can use as your template. So you can fill in the gaps here to develop your own template that is honestly at the level of some of the basic AI-powered tools that are out there today. So a lot of AI-powered tools, they are using templates that are in a similar kind of complexity. And, if it can really power apps that are in production and live and working today, just think about how applicable, your prompt template and the skill that you're building right now, just how useful that is. But in this case, this is a template that you can use. And if you need to fill this in, this is where you can actually ask Alex, the customer support agent or the customer support manager, for more details. So for example, for desired tone and style, we can say, okay, we know friendly and empathetic is going to go into here. And what's an example? Add ideal tone examples. And yeah, Alex did give that to us. Good news, your order is on the way. So that's great. Keeps key steps to adjust the query. Yeah, this is order tracking that we're talking about. So we're wanting to resolve order tracking and mention, specific query types. Okay. And we actually do have an outline of how order tracking currently works. So we can say, ask clarifying questions to gather critical details. And you can say, can I have your order ID or email? Verify the details against company policies or systems. And then this is where you would check the shipping status, for example. Check that the order ID or email exists. Then check for its shipping status. Provide clear next steps based on the situation. So here's where you can say, share the tracking details or delivery estimate. And then this is also where you can say, clarify any delays. Great, so we have some information that you can start to use to fill in this template, but you're gonna have to ask more questions to fill in the entire thing. So it's quite exciting. Please use this template as much as you can to fill it up. For example, for something like escalation criteria, we have an example question that you can ask to get there. So escalation template is, are there any specific scenarios the chatbot should escalate immediately to human agents? Great. So let's just say that you have finished writing your template after going through all of these questions and writing it up yourself. What's next is you can take a screenshot of it and write about your template. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this. And add that to my documentation. Although for yourself, I do highly recommend just filling out the entire template before you take that screenshot and move on. And this is where you can add a few more details. Our initial prompt template identified our stakeholders' needs by outlining the tone, steps to resolve the issue, background context, and our escalation criteria, edge cases. So many you can fill in here, an output example. So you can say steps to resolve the issue, background context, escalation criteria. I would say an example scripts. Oh, I just realized I answered the second half of this question. So we'll copy this over. Our initial prompt template includes all of that. So what we instead are here going to mention is we identified our stakeholders' needs by outlining, I would say by discussing, because you're really having a conversation with Alex here. So technically you can say by scoping, by discussing, by exploring. I would say you're discussing their current solutions. I would say the current issue and solutions. Nice work. So when you're ready, you can ask for feedback by copying this prompt for, "Hi Alex, I've drafted this initial version. Could you please give me some feedback based on clarity, tone, details, and effectiveness?" So this is a prompt that you will copy to ask Alex for feedback now. So you would put this in here. Oh, actually, we're gonna copy this. And then put this in here. Oops. And then here you are just asking, can I give you my initial template, and can you give me some feedback on it? So Alex, of course, says yes, and this is where you can paste your feedback or paste your initial template and see what, and this is what Alex tells you. Here's how I tailor my response as a customer support specialist. So instead of giving specific feedback, it looks like Alex has instead given you a example of how it would handle the same conversation. It sounds like you're actually expected to fill in the blanks here and revise your template based on the feedback to make it even better. It could also be that right now, because this is such a big request, ChatGPT could easily actually lose context of what it's supposed to do, which is play as Alex, and it could actually start to try to fill in this template for you, especially if you have gaps in your existing template, which I do. So that's where maybe the feedback won't come across, and it will just sound like ChatGPT is trying to answer or fill in the rest of the template instead. Now, if you see that happening, all you gotta do is shorten your template and see if you can work with something even more concise. So this is another example of how Alex could respond with some feedback. This is some great kind of feedback that you can get instead. And this was made possible when I initially put in a fully filled example of the prompt template. But yeah, after you've implemented your feedback and you've refined it, this is where you can take a screenshot of your refined prompt and reflect on your experience as the AI engineer. Exciting, isn't it? So let's take a screenshot of the feedback that you get from Alex, our customer support manager. And this is where you can reflect on how you would update your template. The feedback we received was to include more edge cases and I think some of the edge cases were just at the bottom here, where if they didn't have an order ID and the order hasn't arrived. Like the customer not having an order ID or wanting a refund. To respond to feedback, we updated our template to include the mentioned edge cases. And what's another way you could update the template? You could totally update it by including the example conversation draft and putting it in there. Great work. So, whoop whoop, well done. Congrats on setting up a template as a prompt engineer. Building reusable prompt templates like this one will help streamline workflows and make sure there is just this consistent quality across AI apps. I think it really just shows you just how important that AI engineers just play this really important role in figuring out how they can turn non-technical requirements, oh, I just want to sound like this, I want my chatbot to sound like this, which might seem non-technical. You're talking about tone and language and humor sometimes, but you really need to convert that into language that the AI models will understand. So truly a very, very important skill with a big impact. Congratulations on tackling that secret mission. Isn't it so different from just learning the techniques? You start to have to not only understand the technique, but be able to translate what your non-technical audience wants, or just any audience, what they want, and translate that into a specific prompt. Cool. So there's a tip here that you can easily rename or delete conversations that you've had with ChatGPT. That's the only thing you might need to delete. Luckily, nothing is going to charge you for creating. So if you want to just leave everything and just, finish this project and move on, that's totally okay. You're not going to be charged for it. But in the meantime, we just have one final reflection to do, and we can wrap up here. So reflect on the key tools and techniques you learned. The AI model we used was ChatGPT. Key techniques we learned include, oh my gosh, so many. I really like reverse engineering, prompt training, clarifying questions, meta prompting, meta prompt creation, and I also really liked the prompt templates. Great. This project took us approximately 2 hours. Including all of the demo time. I would say the most challenging part was absolutely writing our own prompt template. It really does get very, very detailed. For myself, it was most rewarding to see the impacts, to see the big impact that small changes in a prompt can make. By just adding a few more words like think step by step or ask clarifying questions, the quality of your responses just changes drastically. So that was really satisfying. We did this project today to learn about prompt engineering and 9 different techniques. This project definitely met our goals and built our skills in creating templates that can help with either automating prompt generation or build AI tools. Both are so important, both are so helpful. All right, and that's a wrap, everyone. So well done on completing this project on prompt engineering. You've just learned how to use role and audience to add some context, using the desired output format, clarifying questions, decomposition, there was prompt chaining, self-critiquing, reverse engineering, and creative frameworks. There's a bit of a summary on each of those techniques if you really want to get into a revision for this. You can use this as a checklist in the future or screenshot it as your little cheat sheet, and absolutely creating that meta prompt to automate that prompt writing process. I hope you enjoyed that secret mission on writing a prompt template, because I would say that's where you're really, really getting into like the behind the scenes look of prompt engineering beyond the everyday conversations with an AI model yourself. So super practical, this one. And congratulations, you are a prompt engineer in the making. You should be so proud of yourself for learning all of these different techniques. Did you have a favorite? Did you have one that you're going to start using, from the, whip it out from your back pocket become like a very, very popular prompt technique you're going to use, add it to the chat, add it to the comments. We'd really love to know whether this is something that you've learned something from. And of course, all of the reflecting and screenshots that you've taken have been contributing to an awesome documentation covering everything you've learned in a very easy to share way. So here is a LinkedIn post template that you can use to post about what you've done today very easily. I would highly recommend tagging next work like this so that we instantly get notified and we can shower you with lots of love and support. We really love commenting and just really enjoying the documentation that you create as well. Everyone always seems to take away something new, something different. So we learn a lot from you too. Download your documentation like this. Awesome. And this is how you can start to read the reflection for everything you've done today. You know, so from starting your conversation from the first time to adding basic prompt techniques. Of course, there were some advanced techniques that you used, specialized techniques that you use like reverse engineering and creative frameworks, meta prompts, and for all of the extra pros out there writing that prompt template. Okay, awesome work, everyone. You can attach that over here. Click done and off you go. You'll be able to share what you've learned in the 45 minutes to an hour or however long you spent like having fun with this project today instantly as well. So I really, really hope you've learned something from this project today. I hope you're taking away something new that you didn't know before. Thank you so much for choosing to learn with Nextwork. It means the world. It really means the world. Shout out to Joe for saying, Alex, customer support manager, was that name taken from Amazon Lex? You know what? That's so true. I'm gonna say yes, Amazon Lex is awesome. And the roots of a very, very OG project here at Nextwork where you build your own chatbot with Amazon Lex. I love that reference, so thank you, Joe. All right, team. If you have any questions, just know that the Nextwork community is the best way to ask it. So it's at community.nextwork.org, and you can ask any questions that you have about the project. And of course, come when you've created your documentation so we can check it out and celebrate together as well. Woo! In general, I hope you've learned as much as we have, and we'll see you in the next project. There's so much coming in the world of AI, and we're just so excited for it too. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Bye. Thanks, everyone. See ya.